My fish room is set up in my garage, and I've done my best to turn it into like a cozy space where I can just create tanks and hang out and enjoy them. I'm Lucas from Terracotta Aquarium, doing this in collaboration with Zach from Aquafinity. Thank you, Zach, for having me. This is my favorite aquarium in my studio by far, just because it's something I've always wanted to do. And that is setting up just like a huge aquarium in like a riverbed style. I call this one the rainbow riverbed because there's a nice group of 6 rainbow fish. They are so much fun to have. I've always wanted to have rainbow fish, always wanted to have a tank like this. So much fun to just sit and enjoy this one because it feels like I really have accomplished something with it. There's a couple of Lomini spotlights up top and then another Awase canister filter, I think a 350. It's full of all sorts of grasses like Vallisneria, Dwarf Sagittaria, Sagittarius subulata, all sorts of different Anubias and Buses. There's a lot of Hydrocotyle tripartita in here as well. Manzanita wood, bigger rounded boulders. Besides the rainbow fish, there are maybe 30 Danios in here, zebra and leopard Danios, 3 honey gourami fry, and then a bunch of Corydoras. There's a mix of peppered Corys and Cerbi Corys. And there's also a pleco in here, a blue-eyed lemon pleco named Chester. She loves to hide and snack on the wood and things that are in here. But this aquarium is also really special to me because the 3 honey gourami fry, I accidentally bred them, and I also accidentally bred a ton of the Danios, maybe half of them. This is kind of my pride and joy of my studio right now. This tank here is what I call my nature aquarium. I have it kind of designed in the classic nature aquarium style, but done in like a low-tech environment. So the aquarium itself is a water box aquarium, 25-gallon tank, a higher light above, and then there's an Awase canister filter. A bunch of Java ferns, Anubias, Bacopa, and Ludwigia. There are cardinal tetras, a honey gourami, and also a Bolivian ram. The ram, I think it's just a temporary home for him in here. I had what I thought were a pair of rams in the epiphyte-only aquarium, but I had to separate them because it turned out that they were 2 males and there wasn't quite enough space. But he's living happily in here for now. This was the first aquarium that I set up in this space, so it is the oldest, so right around 4 months old. It's really coming into its own now. A lot of the background plants are starting to reach the surface in places. And it's a lot of fun to just sit and enjoy this one. These are all shrimp tanks, and there's another one set up over there on my desk. Up here we have another aquarium. This is the epiphyte only aquarium. And I love this aquarium because it's not like my other aquariums. A lot of the time I'll just start scaping, and then when I have something awesome, I'll say like, okay, what fish are gonna make this even better? I started with the idea of making something just for Corydoras. So there's a great group of panda cories in here, and the substrate in here is just sand. It's kind of just like a perfect little playground for them. But there's also a bunch of pork chop rasporas in here, and there's also another Bolivian ram. But for the plants in here, it is, hence the name, only epiphytes and also floating plants and terrestrial plants, but nothing growing out of the substrate. So it's a whole bunch of Java fern, Anubias, Bulbitis, a little bit of Bucephalandra, and a little bit of Hydrocotyle tripartita. This aquarium came together really well. It's really fun to have, and it's incredibly low maintenance because it's just all epiphytes. So it's something that I really just have to top up the water on, do the occasional water change, and I can just sit back and enjoy it. And I can tell that I'm really successful here because the Corys seem so happy. They're always all over the place, foraging for different things. This one was really fun just because it was a different approach for me. How do I get ideas for my scapes and make them look good? To be honest, I consume a lot of content online. You know, I scroll through Instagram, I look at a bunch of YouTube videos, and I just try to cram a lot of inspiration into my brain of what other people are doing that looks really cool. And I try to pick up on some of the techniques that they're using, kind of just bury that into my psyche so that when I go to scape, I kind of have a backbone of knowledge kind of buried into my brain. There is like a lot of history of aquascaping to lean on to give you good inspiration. But I also get a lot of inspiration from like going out into nature, looking at like natural scenes. How can I kind of take that into an aquarium? Not literally, but kind of figuratively. But I also get a lot of inspiration from the fish. For this tank, for example, I want to get this group of panda Corydoras. What are going to be the best conditions for them? And then that can sort of set you on a path. What they need can kind of inform how you want to build out the tank. Like for example, in this one, I wanted just the sand substrate. So no plants in the substrate. Okay, that means epiphyte plants on the Hardscape. And that kind of brings the whole idea together, because I can go from that to saying, okay, what's going to make a great framework for epiphytes? Oh, spiderwood. You know, how can I accentuate that? Lava rocks. I don't really plan ahead too much. Like this tank I did plan ahead, but a lot of the time I'll just sit down, build up a substrate, and then move things around until I think they look good. Ultimately, if the things in your aquarium look good to you, then you've succeeded in making an aquascape. So what are some of my favorite hardscape and plants to use? I like to use plants that I find that work really well for me. And I think that that's a fun part of the hobby, is experimenting, especially with plants, and finding out what's going to grow best in your water with your parameters, you know, where you live. And I found that for me, a lot of those plants are grasses, like Dwarf Sagittaria, Balicinaria, Sagittaria subulata. That's all that's in this tank. Also, as I said, is in here Hygrophila angustifolia. A lot of these longer grassy plants like this grow really, really well for me, because my pH is a little bit higher and the water hardness is a little bit higher here. So I do kind of lean into this. That works really well because I love this kind of like riverbed style layout. And I really like big boulders and like rounded rocks and these big pieces of manzanita wood. I think manzanita wood especially is one of my favorite hardscape materials. Also, I really like Anubias, very easy to grow. I think it's really beginner friendly plant. And I really like focusing on like beginner friendly stuff. Growing red plants has always been fairly difficult for me, and I'm trying to get more into that and experimenting a little bit. I love going to the store, buying plants that I've never had before, chucking them in a tank and just seeing how they do, because I can learn something from that and then apply it to my next projects. How do I keep my tanks algae free? The short answer to that is that I don't always. There's always going to be a little bit of algae in aquariums, and you kind of have to accept that. And it's not always a bad thing. A lot of biofilm can grow on algae and stuff like that. So in my shrimp tanks, I really embrace algae to a certain degree. I find that if you do set the substrate up really well for the plants to grow, they will overcome the algae eventually. Like this tank is a good example because it's going through a little bit of a diatom phase right now, and it's kind of on the tail end of that. The diatoms did hurt some of the plants like the Pagostemon stellatus here. Basically what I've done for this tank in particular to help get through the diatom phase is I just reduced the photo period from 8 hours down to 6 hours. So 6 hours of light a day. And then I added in some floating plants. And the floating plants will reduce the light that's getting into the tank, but they're also going to suck up the excess nutrients in the water column. But that's ultimately what algae grows from, right? Is it's too much light that the plants can't utilize properly, and too many nutrients in the water column that they're not soaking up. So floating plants do a really great job in helping with algae overall. I use them in almost all of my aquariums because they're so helpful in helping to find that balance. But in the long run, I think if you do just get your foundation right, over time the plants will outcompete the algae in most cases. And little tweaks like this can just help that along the way. For the most part, I don't have a whole lot of algae issues in my aquariums unless I kind of mess up from the beginning. And sometimes that does happen to me because I like to do a lot of experimentation with different substrates. Ultimately, like the battle with algae is kind of just learning from experience, making little tweaks and finding out what's going to work for you. So how do I maintain my aquascapes to keep them healthy? Well, we can take a look at this tank here as an example. This is my betta fish tank. This is Reginald. Reginald, you can say hello if you want. I find that for keeping tanks healthy, it's really just all about the plants, and that starts down in the substrate. Like if you set up your substrate for success to avoid things like compaction by having a gravel layer, and then aqua soil and root tabs, and then a capping layer, that really is just going to set your stem plants especially up to grow really well. And if you can get plants growing really well, it's going to just take away a lot of the maintenance that you're going to have to do, because they're going to be purifying the water for you, so you'll have to do less water changes. They're going to be keeping algae down by competing with it and taking up all of the nutrients. And they're going to make your fish healthy, you know, by just creating an environment where there's not a whole lot of excess nutrients in the water. I don't really do a whole lot of like day-to-day maintenance. I do water changes on my tanks maybe every like 2 to 3 weeks, and I'll just do like a 10%. I enjoy doing like trimming and replanting, so I don't really think that that's too much maintenance, honestly. It's kind of a reward for me to do plant maintenance because that means that my plants are growing well. I don't use a huge amount of fertilizer or anything like that. I don't really find that it's necessary in my planted tanks and aquascapes. I do use a lot of plants that are just like heavy root feeders. Fertilizer just isn't as necessary for me. I do use a little bit of fertilizer in my tanks that have like Java ferns or a whole lot of Anubias. But besides that, most, if not all of the nutrients in my tanks are locked down into the substrate. So what is the most difficult aquascape that I've ever built? Well, it's going to be this one for sure. This is my attempt at a low-tech iwagumi. And speaking of, experimental, this one is very experimental for me because it's something that I want to see if I can do. Like, I am kind of intentionally challenging myself with this one a little bit. I have a bunch of just different like carpeting plants in here, like Monte Carlo, dwarf hairgrass, glossostigma, microsword, and crypt parva, I think are the 5 in here. And I'm really excited to see how this develops, but it is going to take a lot more maintenance than I generally set up my tanks to have because it's almost entirely aqua soil besides like a bulking up layer underneath. I don't have any floating plants or anything in this yet. This is, like I'm saying, a little bit of an experiment and a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, I expect this to be a huge challenge because it's a little bit outside of my comfort zone. And I like doing this kind of thing too, where I push my boundaries a little bit, practice what I know, iterate on that, and then also push my boundaries because that's all just part of the process of improving. What are my tips for keeping low-tech aquascapes? My major tip would be to utilize a nutrient-rich substrate capped over with sands. Once you have that foundation going, you can experiment with some different plants, find out what's going to work best for you, and then you can lean into those plants a little bit more, learn how to grow those really well, and then move on from there. Because if you get the substrate and the plants right, the world can really open up to you. Don't be afraid to tear down an aquarium if it doesn't work for you. You can save all of your substrate, use it again, make some friends in the aquarium hobby too, and get some free plants from them that you can try out. And talk to people at your local fish store. You can say, hey, guys, like in your tanks, what works well for you? Like, what do you guys recommend? And they'll set you in the right direction. And you can make friends that way too. Really knowledgeable friends. I've actually only been into this hobby for about 2 years. I started like I think a lot of people do, and they say like, hey, I want a fish tank in my house. That would be cool. So my wife and I got into it together. We got like a 30-gallon tank and we did some gravel and kind of chucked a bunch of plants in, did a little bit of research about cycling and that kind of thing, and got fish. It had its ups and downs because I had no idea what I was doing. I started doing more research and I found out that it could be so much more than I was currently experiencing. After that first year of having that tank, I tore it down, scaped a new tank using everything that I had learned up to that point, and had so much fun doing it. And it was really rewarding. And I was thinking to myself like, okay, how can I keep doing this and keep getting better? And that just meant like more space to set up tanks and setting up way more tanks. I think with my YouTube channel and everything, I really want to show everything that I've learned to people who might have been like me in that moment. I'm kind of turbocharging my experience by setting up all of these tanks and trying to learn, as much as I can to create something beautiful. And I'm really enjoying that experience. And as far as aquascaping goes, I think I find a lot of fulfillment in creating almost like a functional piece of art. At one point in my life, I was really, really into like miniature painting for like Warhammer and that kind of thing, and creating like a functional piece of art that you'd play like a game with. And I find aquariums kind of similar in that it is like a piece of functional art, but it's functional in that it's like art that is like a home for something that sustains life and grows. And there is something just so fulfilling about starting up a planted tank or an aquascape and seeing how it evolves, like when Mother Nature kind of takes over and turns it into her art. So it's almost like you're sketching a piece of art and then nature is finishing it. And there's something just so unique and fulfilling about that experience. What words of wisdom do I have for you guys? I would say, honestly, just get out there and start experimenting, start finding out what you really enjoy about the hobby. Like, the aquarium hobby is so much more than just aquascaping or shrimp keeping. There are so many aspects to it. Like there's the fish, there's the plants, there's the whole ecosystem side of things. The beauty of it is that there is so much to it, so you can really hone in on what you want to do. So my advice would just be to go out, experiment, find what you really enjoy, latch onto that, and then just keep doing it, keep experimenting, just keep having fun. Find that sense of fulfillment through doing it. You're probably gonna fail a lot of times. Be willing to fail, because failure is gonna teach you way more than success. Having a tank that turns into an algae bomb can teach you so much about what you did wrong to create that algae bomb than a tank that's just perfect and pristine can ever teach you. If you know how you got to that perfect, pristine tank, then that's perfect. But my favorite part of this hobby, and what I think makes it so rewarding, is how deep it is and how much you can learn from being a part of it. Thank you guys so much for coming along on this little fish room tour with me. It was a ton of fun to show you guys my studio. Big thanks to Zach from Aquafinity for inviting me to do this. He has an awesome playlist with a bunch of interviews just like this one. Make sure you check that out. And then when you're done there, come check out my channel. We're doing a lot of cool stuff over there. But thank you guys so much for watching.